Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, today has come out and slammed company equality quotas. She seems to have forgotten slightly that it was something introduced by the Conservative Party, but apparently it is bad for business. If you have over 251 employees, you have to do a equality quota report every year. Now, joining me now is Reem Ibrahim, Communications Officer at the Institute for Economic Affairs. Lovely to see you again. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Tell us a little bit about what Kemi's slamming today.
Yeah, so she's effectively saying that she wants to kill off these plans to impose equality quotas on larger businesses. So we already have gender pay gap reporting, which requires every business in the UK to report if they have a gender pay gap, if they've got more than 250 employees. Now, what she's saying is that she wants to scrap these plans is by the Financial Conduct Authority and also the Prudential Regulation Authority. And they've consulted on requiring all companies with more than 250 employees, not just report on gender, but also other demographic data such as age, sexual orientation, religion. And this is, again, not just about pay, but the number of employees that they have. So it is further extending these kind of regulations around these different diversity demographic ideas. Now, the reason why this is so important and the reason why I think it's such a bad idea, and the reason why I think Kemi Badenoch is absolutely right to criticise it and try and scrap it, is it doesn't have the intended effect that we want. If the entire idea behind this is actually to say, we're going to be more transparent, we're going to get these companies to come out and actually show us the kind of people that they're employing. But what it does, it doesn't take into account key differentials. So, for example, EasyJet has been under fire for having a gender pay gap of over 50%. And on the surface, that looks really bad. It's like, wow, men are being paid on average 50% more than women. But actually, when you scratch below the surface, the reason for that is because there are more female flight attendants and more male pilots. And of course, there is a huge gender pay gap between those two jobs.
Isn't that it? Well, 2 points about it. First of all, my political memory only goes back so far, but I did actually think that it was Theresa May who encouraged this to be introduced. So what you're saying is Kemi Badenoch saying, the question I first of all say to Kemi is who proposed it in the first place? I've always thought this is virtue signalling nonsense and the government should get out of the way of business and let businesses get on with making money for their shareholders and pay more tax. Get rid of this virtue signalling bunkum. But it was, I think, Theresa May who insisted on it in the first place. So what does Kemi have to say about that?
Well, this is exactly it, right? Kemi is a Conservative minister, and she sort of spoke about the fact that, being business secretary and also being a women and equalities minister has meant that those things come into crossover. And actually, sometimes she has to kill off bad ideas, and this being one of them. But the reason why this isn't just virtue signaling nonsense, this is dangerous and actually damaging to the very people it's intended to protect. For example, if a company wants to employ more ethnic minorities or more women that tend to take up part-time work as a result of their flexible working arrangements. Women often become mothers, which is why they're more likely to take up that kind of part-time flexible work. Companies are going to be more likely to, A, either just not hire them in the first place, or B, they're going to try and outsource that work and give them more inflexible kind of unstable contracts. And so actually, in turn, this kind of stuff, whilst it's intended to help women and ethnic minorities and minorities of sexual orientation, it often does the opposite, and the unintended consequences tend to be dangerous.
Well, Reem, I think it goes further than that, because what I say to the government is stick to your knitting. We've got record NHS waiting times. We've got record number of out-of-work sickness benefits. We're about to potentially have World War III kicking off, and we've got smaller armed forces and the entirety of the New York Police Department. Why on earth is the government interfering in this nonsense? Let business get on and do business. But let me ask, on the other side of the argument, we always try and get a bit of balance here on TalkTV. Do you think that the cause of the gender pay gap, which is completely wrong, obviously, people should be paid the same amount regardless of their gender for doing the same job, has been helped or hindered by the gender pay gap publications, particularly in larger companies?
It's been hurt. And I will say this, there is no proof that there is a significant gender pay gap in this country. Now, no doubt there are probably women that are not being paid enough and probably men that are not being paid enough as a result of the unfairness within their own individual companies. But it has been illegal since the 1970s to pay men and women differently for the same work. The point is that men and women are doing different types of work. Many women become mothers, and so they often take up part-time work. They're significantly more likely to do so. And I think that's something that's fine. It's their choice to do so, and it's something that they should be allowed to do. The gender pay gap, I mean, it's not necessarily hugely important in media at the moment, but it used to be. And women used to be told growing up that they will not earn the same amount of money as...
I think people might say the reason we don't talk about it so much is because there has been this publication, and it has in many cases got better. Thank you so much for joining us here on TalkTV. We love hearing from you. Quickly, Stella, because we are running into the news, do you think this is something which is good or bad?
I will shock you. I actually agree with a lot of what Rim says. I do think equality quotas are not always helpful, and I do think that they...
Do you agree with anything I say about it?
Yes, I think...
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, I do, actually. I think they can be quite patronizing and virtue signaling, and just a way for companies to say, look at all of these things we're doing for you.
I think they're very necessary.
And ethnic minorities, we're being so nice to you. But at the same time, I do think that there needs to be a way for... What is going to change the culture is to have more strong women who feel like they are able to speak up when they work in a company and they're not stifled by whatever culture that is.
Nobody's ever going to
Let me summarise it. Stella agrees with me.